Welcome to the Mark Divine Show. This podcast is about more than just listening. It's about sparking action and inspiration while transforming yourself, your community, and the world at large. Each episode is designed to help you grow as a leader, break through personal barriers, and make lasting impact. Together, you and your host will explore topics like mental toughness, emotional resilience, purpose, and evolving consciousness, while embracing challenges and facing this fast-changing world. Our guests on the Mark Divine Show are exceptional individuals who offer wisdom from diverse fields, whether it's science, philosophy, leadership, human performance, or psychedelic research. Join us today as we dare to think bigger, live bolder, and unlock the common potential within everyone. Here's your host, Mark Divine.
Today, I've got a good friend, Kane. Kenny is a comedian. He is one of the longest running CrossFit affiliate owners.
Year 21.
Number 21?
No, year 21.
Oh, year 21.
2004.
Okay. Wow. Okay. He also runs a very successful men's group. He's just an all-around amazing guy, jack of all trades, master of one, I think.
0.5.
Anyways. So Kenny, super stoked to have you here today. And one of the things, obviously, I wanted to dive right into is, I'm sorry to hear about you losing your home in the fire. What a tragedy.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even imagine what you and everyone else up in LA has endured, the last 3 weeks or whatever.
2
weeks.
2 weeks today.
Well, just walk us through your experience.
Yeah.
Like from hearing about the fire, did you think you were at risk right away? Because these things can happen pretty fast.
Yeah, they can.
Like, give us your story.
There's layers of story.
Of course. Start with the outer layer.
Yeah. I was with the client. So I own a gym and I work with people in a variety of ways, one of which is what you refer to as the physical mountain. So we do physical training. So I was with a client about an hour from where, it took me about an hour to get back once I got news from my wife. But I felt my phone vibrating and it just was not stopping once I got to my client's house, and finally picked it up, and my wife's like, you need to come back immediately. Oh. And, there was some concern in her voice, and I don't even think she quite understood what was happening at the time. She just knew that she needed to, at that point, go get our 2 boys who go to Marquez Elementary School, which was the first school that caught fire.
Oh, wow. Wait, it caught fire while they were at the school?
By the time she got there, the fire had come up the hill and was crusting the campus.
Good Lord.
And so she got the kids into the car. All the other kids were then, like, right after her, got put onto buses. And she got on Sunset Boulevard, not far from where Marquez Elementary is, and was stuck because down the road, there was a lot of people who had to abandon their cars because the fire was surrounding them and they had to get out and move. So traffic wasn't moving. And she, as a mother, was thinking, okay, well, I've got my 2 children, but the third, we have an infant who's 8 months old, who was with the babysitter while she, and so who's about 1.5 miles away. Wow. So she just stuck in the car watching the fire jump from tree to tree and house to house.
How close to her?
It was surrounding her.
Holy shit.
And so she pulled her car off because it wasn't going anywhere, pulled off in a side street and just told the boys to run with her. And so she ran from the houses were catching on fire, the trees were catching on fire, and she just ran. And she ran 1.5 miles back to our house. And it's good news. The good news is that we're a running family.
Yeah.
She was a Swedish Olympian, and our 9-year-old just ran a 22-minute 5K, and our 7-year-old runs a 27-minute 5K. Okay. So they're like uniquely fast and weirdly fast.
Thank goodness.
Oh yeah, thank goodness. And she properly recognized that they're going to be better on foot, and and physically capable in that moment. And so she made the decision to, and it still kind of breaks my heart to just know that she had to go through this decision making. Like, I got to go pick up my kids. Now I'm stuck and I'm away from the baby, and she's got to make a terrible, she's split. the baby was safe because she was with the babysitter, but Char didn't know that. The fire's just jumping around and winds are 70 miles an hour.
The babysitter lived in the zone of danger?
No, she was at the house. My wife was at a dental appointment.
Oh, the babysitter
she came out of the dentist.
Your house.
And it was chaos. And so.
By the way, did you ever get that car back?
We did.
Not that it's important. I'm just curious. A little stuck in my head.
No. We did. And so this is the indiscriminance of fires, right? She went back 3 days later to see her burnt down home. And then the weird victory for the moment was, I've got my car, that's what she went through. I got the car. And the back rear bumper light was melted. And then part of the frame between the passenger front and back doors was also kind of dented. But she, she got in not realizing that you probably shouldn't get in a vehicle like that, given that, 11,000 Teslas just burned.
Right.
I think that that's one of the things that is like really concerning about this particular fire is, and I say this from experience because my hometown of Santa Rosa burned down in 2017 and I lost like where I grew up. And so this is 2.0. And anyway, so she ran back, got with our baby Freya, and the good fortune, I had one of my employees, Jamie Silber, was nearby. He came by and got the dog, the four of them, and got them to another one of our clients' houses for safety. And then I eventually made it back and rendezvoused with them. Once I rendezvoused with them, we kind of situated in a house and we were watching, like everybody was, on the news, which is weird because I haven't watched the news. I can't remember the last time I watched the news.
In a major crisis, that's what you
got to
pay attention.
And so, we're just kind of watching the news, just sort of going at, what's getting damaged, is our home on fire, like all these things. And so my friend Nick and I decide to drive back into the neighborhood, and we found like a secret route that could get back to my house. And, and that's where I start to be able to really observe this sort of distal end of the human condition. Because as we're driving into the neighborhood, there's two looters who were doing alley-oop dunks on a child's basket. And we drive past, and we don't do anything to stop them because we're just trying to get to my house to grab.
Wait, they're playing basketball?
They're literally alley-ooping each other. And, there's this sinking feeling that's happening for our human condition as I'm witness to that, so that's one part of this thing. And then we get to my block, and sure enough, there's two looters directly across the street from our house, taping the Ring doorbell for a neighbor's house, getting ready to go inside.
Jeez.
Good fortune is now I'm 54 and I've lost a lot of hair. My buddy's driving a Suburban, so I get out and I look and sound like a cop. And I am physically prepared for moments like this. Yeah. We as a martial artist, I could have miscalculated. I didn't have a gun, but at that moment, but very forcefully got these guys out of the neighborhood. And then went into the house after we kind of shooed them away. My buddy was standing guard, just making sure that they didn't loop back for whatever reason, so I could get into the house and kind of
into your house,
into my house. Yeah. And so
your house hadn't burnt? No,
not at that point. But there was a house, 8 houses from ours, completely combusting.
I think it's crazy how just indiscriminate it is.
Oh, it's so,
it's the imagery random. I saw is like house burned, house not touched, right? Shopping mall burned, church not touched. Yeah. Like it's so strange.
That's been my personal experience in both fires. Just it's very random and very indiscriminate. So I get in the house, and this is one of those like very human moments between any couple. My wife is having her experience. I FaceTiming her, and she's like, okay, go to this drawer, get this, go upstairs. My buddy outside is now shouting at me.
Did you have a plan for anything like this happening after the Santa Rosa? Did you have like a checklist or, things to get out of the house in a crisis?
Yes and no. We had, we needed our birth certificates and passports and those kind of things.
So you thought of those first?
We had those. We had those secured.
Had those.
My wife had some stuff for the baby, some clothes for the kids, a couple of other things, but she realized there was a bunch of stuff that she wanted me to get. And so, and that was the mission. Our mission was to go back in and grab stuff. But now there's secondary conditions that we weren't prepared for. There's looters. And then as my wife is like, hey, can you grab this? Can you grab that? My buddy's yelling from outside the house, Kenny, the house next door is on fire. The house next door. And I'm trying to tell Shar, I'm like, babe, I got to go. There's a situation outside. And she's like, okay, just go into the kitchen and grab. I'm like, no, I got to go. She's still giving me instructions. I'm like, I know you can't hear Nick, but the house next door is on fire. I got to go. And so get off the phone with her. We go out. It's a brush fire. So his bushes are on fire. Get our hose, put out that fire. He's stomping on it. Go back in. And at this point, Mark, you can see there's just the toxic fumes they look like you're watching a Harry Potter movie. There's like when the bad ghosts turn into spirits.
Like a swirling.
The swirling and it's dark. And there's certain parts of it that are darker. And it's right in front of you. And there's layers. There's like light, gray, dark, and like black. And it's all moving in layers.
Interesting.
And you just kind of, and all this is so surreal because many things are happening. Like,
did you have a mask on or anything to protect you?
No, we weren't prepared like that. It's just taking as much carcinogenic as I could. I mean, I've got my nose breathing practice.
Maybe took a few years off your life, but you're happy to be alive, right?
I sure did. I was like, let's lop two off. And so then we put out the fire, and then we just think, hey, we're pretty successful with that. Like, let's do our amateur firefighting. And so we wet my house, just sort of like we're thinking this will do.
You got to try something.
We did,
right?
and we did try, and we did the best that we could with the tools that we had, and so then we get out of there. And so when you ask the question, like, what's on the checklist, there were things that Shar very concretely was going to walk me down. Personally, for me, I lost so much in the fires in 2017. I didn't have many material things that mattered to me that much.
Yeah. That's the way to really crystallize what's important.
Yeah.
Right?
And so the only things that I would say that like I really wish that I had is that, I've been journaling for 29 years as a daily habit.
You lost all those journals?
All my journals are gone.
Dude,
I've one that's sitting over there.
That's like we call it fire puja. Eventually you got to burn that shit.
You got to burn it.
Well, the universe did it for you.
And so... and so there was something like, even in the middle of all this, I was at ease about like, I'm going to get the stuff that my wife wanted.
Your family's all fine.
And get the stuff that she wants as best as I can. But then we really did recognize it's time to go with the embers starting the fire next door and us putting that out and the fire starting near. It's like, man, we got to go.
And at that point you knew you were going to lose your house.
I didn't know that.
You did not.
I was really optimistic as my default setting is, I'm like, I fall on that side of it. Like,
Same.
It'll be there tomorrow, it's going to make it. We got this, I put water on it.
Right.
and we didn't know until about 48 hours later, my neighbor got back and he called me and he's like, yeah, both of our homes are gone. And our entire block. And we were in the ABC streets. And so that region was just obliterated, just knocked out completely. And except for the two homes right next to ours. Hundreds and hundreds of homes in a perimeter around ours. Gone. And then two houses like on our street. The one that just finished getting built.
Here's a question. This is like jumping ahead a little bit, but are those houses even livable?
Well,
given what's going on around them. And everything?
Again, so
I'm not even sure I'd want to move back in a house that's surrounded by
look,
homes.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's going to be a construction site forever.
Right.
I mean, you've got all these like crazy homes to rebuild and it's going to take a minute. And our neighbors had a 1-year-old. Like, you don't want your 1-year-old in this stuff. No. And
so even if you didn't lose your home, you probably lost your home in a sense. Like, how are you going to rent it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
you can't collect insurance. You don't want to live there. That's just as bad.
Yeah. And so I think in some ways that can be worse.
Right.
Because you
got no safety net.
You're in between things. And it's it's going to be very hard to decision make, in that context. And it depends where you fall on the scale, like what your
financial resources,
are and where that falls. And it's very split. Like there's a lot of people like us who like, we were working as hard as we could to be in that neighborhood so we could send our children to the public school that was incredible in that neighborhood. And we built this like really amazing, my wife just cultivated this like really loving space in our home. And I hosted my men's group. I have multiple, every Monday, different groups would meet. And my wife would train clients there 80 to 100 hours a month. And so we had just so much built-in infrastructure to our home. Our home was a community. It was a community to the community, and my wife with the women and me to the men. It was just like our home was like a central place for 50 or 60 people. And, and again, like I think the lesson that I got, the lesson I've learned many times, when I was doing, the mastermind crew back in 2017 with you and the cohort that you had then, like, that was a particularly rough year because I had lost a lot of people that were very close to me, and the fires happened that year. And and I think the lesson for me is just like, there's the lesson that you've talked about and taught me about, like the volatility, the uncertainty, the complexity, the ambiguity of our existence is like the moment that we can actually embrace that and be with that, then, we can just sort of like honor this stuff as it comes. And,
right.
As I sit with you right now, I'm so appreciative of that, which you gave me. You gave me a lot of tools for a moment like this. And, I'm able to, in real time, deploy those.
Are you tired of feeling like your gut health is holding you back? Well, I'd like to introduce you to DSO1 by Seed. It's a revolutionary 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic, they call it symbiotic, that's transforming lives across the country. I've experienced your incredible benefits of this clinically validated symbiotic, and I can't stop recommending it. Seed's DSO1 is formulated with 20 powerful strains that work synergistically to support your whole body health. From promoting digestive wellness and maintaining healthy skin, it's a daily supplement that's become an essential part of my routine. What sets them apart is their ability to reinforce the gut barrier integrity and support healthy regularity, leaving you feeling more energized throughout the day. Since taking it, I've noticed a remarkable difference in how I feel. It's no wonder that over 1 million people are experiencing its benefits, and 92% of them recommend it to their loved ones. So you're in good company. So if you're ready to take control of your gut health, visit seed.com/divine. Again, seed.com, SEED.com/divine. Use the code 2525divine at checkout to get 25% off your first month's order. Trust me, your body will thank you. That's 25% off seed.com/divine, code 25DIVINE. Don't wait. Start your journey to better gut health today. Are you ready to embrace the impossible with your four-wheel travel adventures? If so, I'd like to introduce you to the Defender, which is an icon of adventure reimagined for a new generation of explorers. With unstoppable capability, this Land Rover vehicle is engineered to meet challenges head-on, on and off the road. The Defender family, which includes the 90, the 110, and 130 models, exude confidence and are fully equipped for 21st century adventures. Imagine conquering rough terrain with ease thanks to 3D surround cameras and clear sight ground view, letting you anticipate obstacles before they become a problem. And their next generation Pivy Pro infotainment system and intuitive driver displays are customizable to your journey, helping you make more of your adventure. So whether you got grand ambitions or you're exploring uncharted territory, the Defender's legendary capability and modern design make it the perfect companion, especially for those of you who refuse to stay put where you're at. It's more than just a vehicle. It's a statement of exploration and durability. So if you're ready to start your next adventure and you want a four-wheel friend that's up for the task, then you've got to explore the full Defender lineup. Go to LandRoverUSA.com Again, LANDROVERUSA.com. Check it out there and design your own icon of adventure today.
Yeah, so let's kind of double tap on that. What was so when you realized that there was a major crisis and you're like rushing from the gym, like what was your mindset and what was your internal dialogue? How are you using the tools that you learned to, to manage the situation? And what did you see around you, right? And that juxtaposition.
Yeah. As I was moving back towards the Palisades, I mean, first of all, there's so many fire trucks going that direction, Even as I was driving east away from the Palisades prior, there was just a lot of fire trucks that I was passing. I'm like, man, something's going on.
Right.
It was definitely abnormal. But we talk about the OODA Loop. So just being able to observe what you can observe and then orient as you can. And as I was driving back, it's funny, like one of the guys in my men's group, I had a scheduled call with him. And so once I knew that my wife was secure, and she was getting organized, I jumped on that call and, had the call with him as I driving back into my community.
Right.
Interestingly, he's very east of us. He lives in Silver Lake, but his ex-wife and his daughter lost their home in the fires that were east of ours. And so, but I just said, I've got a scheduled call now and this is what I can do. So it's like
front side focus.
This handled it. This is, what's on the map for the day. And then the inventory is very immediate. Once, you kind of transition, okay, wife safe, kids safe. We're at our friend Nick's, incredibly safe, very benevolent family. Just they totally took care of us. And so, at that point, because I've been through natural disasters and murders and all sorts of crazy stuff, like I know from experience, just like, don't get caught in the spin at this moment because the energy is going to be elevated and decision-making is going to be kind of skewed at this moment. Whatever the decisions are, it's going to be skewed. And so, and the decision-making at that point gets pretty simple. It's like, okay, well, got to make sure that we're going to be in a safe space. And so it's very simple at that point. And at the location that we were at originally, we thought we were going to be okay, but the fires, I mean, that thing was moving. It was moving. It kept just chewing acres and acres of land so fast those first few hours. It was just a hunger.
Because the wind was whistling, wasn't it? Like 70 miles
moving
an hour.
The thing. I mean, you've got giant tree branches moving 400 meters that are on fire just across valleys, onto the next thing. And it's decorative trees and it's highly flammable. It's a dry neighborhood, all the great sort of California conditions for fires. And so, then the other piece of it is just to try to relax into it rather than to resist. And so
how was your breathing at that point?
Solid.
You're calm.
Solid. I felt very calm. I felt my breathing. I got great breath practice, and I have for a long time. And so that's integrated.
So it was natural. You didn't have
very
to think
natural.
about it.
Nose breathing, 3160 box. All different breath techniques, and didn't even really need to deploy them. I mean, it was just it was there. And even when we were, when it was upregulated with the, with the looters and all this stuff, there was still like a sense of like. There was enough of a calm there. And so, I think at that point then, as a sheepdog, you start to be a caretaker for those that are spun, and everybody was kind of handling it in a variety of ways. And so with the family, there's like the immediate ones, my 14-year-old daughter who's in Minnesota full time, but she's out with us and has a room in the house, and kind of check in with her, and she's pretty distraught, and just keep going through the checklist of the family, and then you got a 9 and 7-year-old who ran through fire, and they're also kids, so it's this bizarre thing for them. They're both traumatized in a different way, but it's also like crazy because suddenly we're in a hotel that night. And our kids love hotels, you know, they love hotels because they just think it's the coolest thing to be in a hotel. And so there's
and they're so present, right?
They're so present. Like there's the food's different. And, you know, daddy never lets us have French fries. Now French fries are for dinner, you know, and it's just like, and we're winning the pizzas and like, it's whatever, you know, there's ice cream and they're just stoked. And then, you know, and so
anytime there's a fire, they're going to be like, can we go?
Totally. They're just like, you know, now we get ice cream and fries, you know? And so we moved. And so we went to the hotel and, you know, our friends, again, very benevolent, very capable of taking care of us in that moment. And just really, and this is to my point, what I was trying to get to a little earlier, I start to see just the enormity of the goodness in humanity, starting in that moment, and just being present to that.
Well, you see it all, right? You see the depravity,
all of it,
and
all
you
of
know
it,
the goodness,
all of it,
and so you got to recognize that they all coexist.
And it's this coexistent truth that this is part of the human condition,
right.
And so, you know, it begins with that first wave of caretaking that he allows us. And my wife and I are caretakers for them. Like he calls me his Sherpa, you know what I mean? And so, and then his wife just adores my wife and our kids really like each other. And so, but they have the resources to put us up in this like incredible hotel.
Nice.
And it's also, as we're in this like amazing hotel and the kids are eating fries, we're watching the hillside because we're 3 miles from it. And you're just watching the fires were gigantic. They were covering the mountain.
I saw some of the imagery. It's insane.
It's great. And we're just watching from this like super fancy hotel that people from around the world fly in to stay at. And my wife and I would never be able to stay overnight there for 6 days, but like they put us up and concurrently we're watching the fire. It was just such a binary
Were people
reality.
freaking out that the fire could, you know, kind of head into downtown LA? Like where the commercial center?
Yeah. I think, you know, there's this, I mean,
not a lot of fuel down there, but if it's hot enough.
Yeah. And it's hot and the fires, and it was spreading over those first days. It was all over the place. Oh. And so we had the front row seat to that, you know, to that fight. And it's just like, you know, fire was the champ.
Yeah, fire wins.
And fire wins, man.
Fire won, humans zero.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, I'll whoop your ass.
I mean, while we're talking, it's still not 100% contained. It's like 40%, right? Or something.
It's not, yeah. And so, you know, one of our gym students, a Kokoro graduate, as a firefighter, he lives close to us. So from my gym, I have 18 people that had homes burn.
Good Lord.
Another 18 are in homes that are in the conditions that we spoke of earlier.
Right.
They're not in
probably not
going
to go back to anytime soon. Wow.
And so, and in fact, the family that I've been speaking about, the McCutcheons, they've left for Dallas. They're going to move to Dallas. And so we're really unclear as to what's going to happen with that part of the community. Like some of the people are going to stay and just relocate. Other people are just going to be off to wherever they go, you know. And
are you going to stay in LA? Does it change your thinking at all?
So it's really interesting. You know, several years ago, we got exposure, we meaning you, me, to some of Ken Wilber's work. Mm-hmm. And he has this like quadrant sort of thing that, you know, I've taken and tweaked a little bit. But in that upper left quadrant, you know, you're always kind of like looking at your purpose, you know, and then what actions and behaviors follow that, what relations follow that, and what environment do you want to be in. And all that's, some of that you have conscious choice on. And from a purpose perspective, what I'm just trying to sit and be present to right now is, you know, I play a lot of roles in my life. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a business owner, I'm a leader amongst extraordinary humans. And, you know, the one word that right now sits with me above all other words is lead. And when I think about leading, I think about the complexity that lays in front of us to make that decision. Because when we talk about the 5 mountains, there's a lot of things at play. Like, got the mental, got the physical, got the emotional, and I've got good attunement to those things. The intuitive also have strong. And so now I look at this Kokoro, this heart-mind thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so committed to the kindness and the love and the enormity of humanity that's come from my gym community and from the Treehouse, which is my men's group. I mean, there's just so much humanity in these groups. And those groups look to me to hold space in a big way. And I know you know that because you do the same thing. And that's my job is I have this amazing, huge, giant container where I can just hold so much for people. And I'm very committed to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm committed to my children, and I'm committed to my wife. And my wife is Swedish, and she just, she's got the kids in Sweden right now to get fresh air and be with the grandparents. And Sweden's just it's currently a much calmer place. They have their issues because of extremism is everywhere, and people's attentional capacity is getting more distal. You've got all the immigrants that came up from the Middle East. It's complicated. And then Putin wants Gotland, which is their naval sort of position for the Baltic. And depending on what happens in Ukraine, that's it. And knowing my luck, we're moving to Sweden. Great. Putin's our neighbor. No, he's our commander.
Is that in Finland or where is that?
No, Gotland is just off the eastern.
But it's part of Ukraine.
No, it's part of Sweden.
It's part of Sweden.
But Putin explicitly wants Sweden next if Ukraine drops. So if he gets Ukraine, the defense minister in Sweden is really clear on this, and it's the perfect position because he can command the Baltic. And so if he gets Ukraine and gets Sweden, and he's very
Sweden's
upset.
on its way into NATO, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's also why he wants to push the buttons.
Yeah, before that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fascinating. It's a separate subject.
So and that's a whole. But it's interesting because realpolitik plays into, and then I look at the, sort of. We were talking about Catherine's brother, who has he's the pre-disaster guy. I'm the in-disaster guy. So I feel like, would that be the thing? Anyway, I at this point again want to just come back to the OODA loop. And there's just right now the information that we have, there's no good information that we have. I mean, there's things that we can sort of understand, like the housing market. Like my wife and I got displaced. And so you have a binary market, those that can afford what's available and those that might have been able to, but now absolutely.
In terms of renting, right?
Yeah. And so what happened, and I had a very visceral moment when I went to go look at a place in Santa Monica. It was like a 3-bedroom apartment for $13,000, and I wouldn't pay $5,000 if I was loaded.
$13,000 a month.
Yeah, and it's not. It was terrible. And as I'm in the space, I'm aware that the 4 other couples that are in there with me are in a very different position. They're multimillionaires with multimillion-dollar policies, so they're going to be able to, bob and weave and do whatever they want. And it's not like I have no bitterness towards that. This is just sort of like, so when you're using an OODA loop, you got to go, okay, what are the resources that we have? Right. And so we don't have that, and we can't compete with that. And that would also be not wise at this moment. And so the other recognition is that humans in moments like this, and I think this is where some other tools are helping me, humans often want either certainty or they want flexibility. So there's sort of like a let's concretize something or let's migrate. And those are like very animalistic responses. And then there's another, we use a psychometric with my team called market force. And this is really fascinating. People have stress responses that are very similar to animals when stress hits. Mm-hmm. And so you can just go, what's the stressor? And you go, okay, it's cold. What does a beaver do? Beavers build. Mm-hmm. Okay. What does a bird do? Birds migrate. What does a bison do? Bison tolerates. What does a bear do? They hibernate. And all those stress responses are perfectly appropriate given those individual biologies. Mm-hmm. And so this is what, this is the email that I sent to my team. I said, know that our community is hit hard by this. And we're going to have very different animalistic responses based on this stress induction. And we must, in this moment, also be composed to understand that our biology and our internal bias is going to think that one way is better than another way of handling whatever's happening. But people have default settings. And so we must give space for those default settings. And so,
which are you? The bear, the bird, the beaver?
I'm a combination. I'm a little bit more of a beaver and a bird, but I can be pretty tolerant as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm a little bit of a hybrid. But in this moment, my wife wants to build, like she wants to establish a home and this kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm just trying to have a conversation. Like, we don't compete in this market. And we have really challenging decisions in front of us. Like, okay, what does that mean? If her and I are physically not present for the business, what does that mean? And there's a lot of unanswered questions there because, of the things that I mentioned before. We're very much central.
Yeah, you still have a physical location.
There's a presence there that is helpful for me. So,
did you have insurance on your home though?
Yeah, and this is the other part of it. So when we had renter's insurance, and
were you renting?
We were renting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so I was assuming that you were
No, we were renting. Yeah. No, and we weren't in a position to buy in that neighborhood. I mean, it's like $1 billion. So it's like we just weren't in that position, and so we had renter's insurance, and when we were going in, we were a family that has athletic gear, kids' soccer cleats. The most expensive thing in our material position was my sauna and my plunge. Those are the most expensive things that I had. And we were thinking, as we were getting the renter's insurance, in the context of thieves. Like, what would somebody steal? And we did a very calculated, let's go with this policy, because the only thing expensive is Char's triathlon bike. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, everything is like not that expensive. It's not, And the expensive stuff that we have this very elaborate gym setup. Mm-hmm. So I've got rigs, I've got, 8 barbells, thousands of pounds of weight, matting, AstroTurf. Mm-hmm. But like, if a thief is coming, the only thing they're walking with is her bike. Nobody's walking out with a sauna. Nobody's walking out with a plunge. And there's no thief just like, okay, we just need 4 hours to load this van up. You know what I mean? It's not happening, And so, and at that time, our gym policy covered the material part of the home gym.
Oh, interesting.
But then in April, they changed their policy. And so I hadn't quite figured out like that. And so I got, 45, 50 grand of home gym stuff, and our policy cap's at 22. And so we're like,
is there any displacement covered rent for a period of time?
So that's what my wife is currently working with our insurance on. And there will be coverage for 4 to 6 months of rent. So there will be some incoming from that, which is great. Mm-hmm. And all that relates back to what I was saying earlier, though, when you're trying to use the OODA loop, trying to decide on, okay, what's the physical location? What cards do we have in our hand? Mm-hmm. And, or how did the ball land on the course? Play it as it lays. And so
there was a lot of critique, Kenny, of, government, California and the city of LA. Water supplies, the
real
reservoir
stuff.
feeding those hydrants being empty because they didn't repair it.
Yep.
You know, all the
Yep.
money that's been set aside for water recapture not being spent because of environmental concerns. How much of that is accurate, and what's your perspective?
That's a great question. I think one of the challenging things, and again, this is all, I think those conversations are so critical to have, but at this moment, we got to let the heads cool just a little bit, so that we can
investigate it.
Yeah. And the nature of our communication right now, politically, is not helpful to solve that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's my larger concern isn't that us humans couldn't actually figure that out from a practical perspective. I have seen firsthand how humans could be amazing in recovering from something like this, just from what I've witnessed in the last 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
But until, my thought is, we're a little bit more disciplined with our tongue. And
well, that means discipline with your mind.
Discipline with the mind.
Right.
And we're in this moment where it's just the base of the brainstem, emotionality is the play, because that's the leverage point for humans from a political perspective, from a financial perspective. And so the real question is, for all of us, like, is that how we can live? And, you know, I think there is some real serious stuff that needs to be looked at. Like I mean, we know that fires are going to happen in Southern California. We know that they're going to happen in Northern California. And we also, I mean, there's two things can be coexistently true. Like, there was 100-mile winds that night, 70-mile wind, the fires were going to move regardless of whether humans did a poor job in planning or not. The fire was going to do some stuff.
That's right.
And so, and the other part of it is, like, how can there not be water there?
Right.
Well, we know that area burned in 62.
I didn't know that. That's
yeah. So the fires are cyclical. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be less than every 100 years that these areas burn. And so if we know that just from a rhythm standpoint, nature's going to do that, and arsonists are going to do that. So whether human created, somebody was, a knucklehead in the backyard with their barbecue, whatever it is, things are going to happen. And, the contingency plans are, like, not so good. Mm-hmm. And the warnings were there. And so those things are true. But again, even if that's true, it also doesn't mean that we can't have, like,
a thoughtful conversation. Yeah, that whole notion has been obliterated.
It has.
Any kind of thoughtful conversation in the public sphere.
It has, but you're not having that conversation. I'm not having that conversation. And unfortunately, we're not the masses.
Right.
But we are the sheepdog, helping sheepdogs try to have these conversations. And I don't want to give up belief that us humans can't get to that point. Mm-hmm. And I also, I took my company off of social media, I took myself off like 8-9 years ago, and I took my company off 7 years ago. And because of this breakdown in communication and these mediums I'm finding increasingly difficult to have they're well, let me just back up to two kind of ideas. When you said, I want to do in-studio conversation, I was like so pleased.
Right.
Because
took me a while to get here.
Well, but there's so much more that happens human to human.
100%.
We are meant, and look, technology does allow us to have intellectual conversations, but we're in this moment of time where we're shifting from an atom-based reality to a bit reality. And the interesting thing about that is, like, when we talk about reality, I heard this from a neuroscientist, what is reality? It's a combination of 5 different things: thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions. And then I put a line under it. And then the next one under that is actions. The actions are the concretized step out into the world. But those first four things are rather flimsy if you think about it from a human, like our perceptions can change moment to moment. Our thoughts, feelings, emotions, all those things can change very whimsically. And these mediums, these bit mediums, are getting those first four things to be very flimsy, and our actions are increasingly kooky. And so, segue, getting into flesh to flesh, eye to eye conversation with you, back to long form, human to human contact, which is evergreen in human healing and human longevity. And I really do believe that technology has such a great role to play in some of this. But I also think of technology, I get this language from the Center of Humane Technology. Technologies can be regenerative or they can be extractive. And if it's an extractive...
Degenerative,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, and they're degenerative as we watch it. I mean, we just need to look up and just go, what's happening? It's like, well...
we saw that with social media. It started out as a very positive thing, a way for people to connect.
Totally, 2008.
Reconnecting with people you hadn't seen in 20 years. And then
211, 212, it changes.
Around 211, yeah, exactly. When it got gamified.
Yep.
Started triggering the dopamine, and then it got
and it doesn't work.
siloed, and then it became a screaming.
Yeah.
And not just an echo chamber, but a screaming chamber.
Yeah, screaming chamber.
So now it's degenerative, and it'd be interesting to see where that goes. But generally with tech, it's the application.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So all those qualities that existed in social media to begin with are still there. But the application, they've kind of been buried, right? So they got overridden, just like nuclear technology.
Yeah, I think
they've been over. The positives are there.
Yeah,
we're afraid to touch it though because of the negative side.
Yeah,
the abuse of that technology.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride for us. I know that, like, I made a decision for our company. I got to a basic position where it's like, look, I'm a health company. So if I know that these mediums at that point occupy 2+ hours a day, if they amplify anxiety and depression, if they, per 10-minute increment, if they repurpose somebody's attention to something that is not theirs to own, those are all qualities that don't relate to the world that I want to live in. And so, I mean, it's just throwing this little teeny pebble in this giant ocean.
A fun thing, though, just to acknowledge back to kind of the nature of the mind, right? So every individual, right, creates their reality, their mind. They either do that effectively or ineffectively. The only way to do it effectively is if you train your mind.
Right.
And so there's actually not one world out here. There's 8 billion worlds.
Yeah.
And so you see that very clearly when you doom scroll through social media. You're like, holy shit, look at that. Look at that world. Look at that world. Look at that. Like none of these are your world.
Yeah.
But you're inviting that in, and you're misperceiving it as a co-created reality. But it doesn't have to be. And so by inviting it in, you're actually tainting temporarily the present moment with this dysfunctional world that is not yours. And so it's very powerful when you recognize that what you allow in is going to affect your perception, it's going to affect your own reality. And so you got to be very, very cautious. So I applaud you for getting, well, it's like me, we haven't had network news in our home 30 years probably. I'm looking at my wife saying 30 years.
Yeah.
So when we kind of like wander by we're traveling and we wander by a TV that's showing like CNN or something, we're just like, oh,
it's so much.
Awful.
It's so much coming in.
It's just so much. Yeah. It actually hurts my brain because it's moving so fast.
And it's scrolling, and there's just like all kinds of stuff. It's like, it's wild. It's really wild.
So,
and I think, what I just want to invite is long form conversations around this and human to human gathering, And
I think, and aside from the fire thing, you guys are going through a lot. Your community needs that in person. But after COVID, people are craving in-person connection. Yeah. And mental health issues are extraordinary. And, people are really starting to feel the negative effects
Yeah,
of
yeah,
just being
it's
so
so
addicted
visible.
to social media. And now the science is kind of coming to reinforce that.
It's there. It's there.
Yeah,
And also, do we need the science to observe that?
We don't.
We don't.
But,
we don't.
You know,
But
we don't. You don't
and the
move
science is there.
anything in this
Yeah.
world without an academic, and you don't even know whether that academic, thing is
Comma,
how
that
biased
part.
it is.
Totally.
Right? We saw that
Because they're on the
payroll.
take.
Yeah.
I think for us, like we recognized early, like from a mental health, from a psycho-emotional, physical perspective, we can handle 80% of it with just basic habits, even if they're crude.
Mm-hmm.
Show up, be amongst your people, eat pretty darn well.
It's the 80-20 rule. That's
totally.
They don't have to be crude. That's just simple. How about you, instead of crude, simple?
But
simple principles.
So with that, we're bypassing so much of that because so much of our community is working from a top-down approach.
Right.
From my therapist and my biohack to this is like, brother, you sleep 4 hours a night. Like, I don't know what conversation we're trying to have until you get that part sorted. So let's get this 80% cooked up. And when you're around other people that commune around like being healthy physically, being together. And I'm just seeing that so much in our community because we do that. We do hard things together. And that's in our DNA. And humanity, there's just billions of people not doing hard things together. They're at each other. And so the habit needs to be choosing the difficult
Well, you
thing.
either do hard things together and thrive through adversity, or you end up doing hard things alone because adversity finds you anyways.
And this is the point when we're going through all this, like our community is just, and this is what gives me purpose. So when you ask the question, like, am I going to stay in LA? I'm just like, man, this community gives me so much purpose.
Right.
And I have to find a way to caretake for that before I make any sort of like directional move,
right?
And I just feel like it's so baked into the cavemen that survived and women that survived to get us here. It's just, we're meant to do this. We don't need to build as much anymore. Yeah. And the mammoths aren't coming to get us.
It's interesting, Kenny, and I'm not pushing back at all, but
no.
I used to think that we had a CrossFit, US CrossFit.
Yeah.
US CrossFit.
Yeah.
We ran SEALFIT out of there.
Yeah.
You did
Spent
many,
right? many hard hours there.
Many times on our grinder. And we lasted 10 years.
Yeah.
And then because all of our training was outside, we had some people complain because...
Yeah, I remember that.
We're like doing hoo-yah shouts in the middle of the street at 4 a.m.
Oh my God. I'm so glad I got in on that.
They were right to complain.
Yeah.
And the city came down and said...
Wait, hold on. Let me just, for the listeners that don't know, I mean, so I did a thing that Mark ran, and some of you may know about it, but we did a Kokoro thing. And then he's saying in the middle...
It's 50 hours of non-stop training.
But I mean, like one of our exercises is that we had to take the gym and go put it in a public park. And we had like 2 hours to do it. And so like it's 600 meters away.
Muscle Beach.
And so we're just like hauling this stuff. And it was like 4 p.m. on a Saturday. And so it's not just in the middle of the night. I'm sure the community at some point were like, what is happening?
That was one of my favorite evolutions because we got a clean gym out of it.
I love that one. I love that one. I had such a that was a
You remember you're hauling it all up to the top of that lookout, and all my SEAL instructor staff were up there just pumping pig, like doing barbell curls and stuff.
It was wild.
The community thought we were nuts. So anyways,
man.
The city rightfully said, you know what, you're making too much noise, and then their mechanism for basically shutting us down was to say that we couldn't work out outside.
Yeah.
We couldn't train outside.
Yeah.
Even in that beautiful 5,000 square foot grinder we had.
Wow, that's such a great spot.
So my point is we had a really loyal community. I think we had like 10 marriages. I'm sure you've had countless marriages that came through your community. And I really resisted, I thought, what are we going to do? We're going to get another place, whatever. But if you build a strong community, it's okay to kick it out of the nest. And it survived, and they're still thriving.
Wow.
They still train together.
Yeah.
They found a way, those who wanted to.
Wow.
And we moved on. And it gave me a lot more flexibility, right? So I can run my business anywhere I want.
And do this.
And do this type of stuff. Yeah. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really do.
But at the same time, I also hear what you're saying. Like there's power in that in-person community, and especially leading with physical training. You don't have to be CrossFit. There's a lot of critique about CrossFit.
Yeah,
you and I know we kind of modified and we changed
100%,
it.
100%.
We got rid of all the stuff that was injuring people.
Yeah. And we both have like yogic martial arts.
But it's like 5 mountain training
things.
is happening there.
Yeah.
Right? The physical is just one aspect. It's an important aspect because it's a vehicle for everything else to happen well. If the physical is not working well, nothing's working well. Right? It's like the foundation of the house.
We some of the stuff that we use that you gave me was the VUCA conversation, which really influenced the philosophy of our gym. We talk about, so when somebody goes, why does your business exist? And I said, my business exists because I believe physical training is a conduit for life so that when difficult things happen, you're prepared.
Right.
I mean, that in a sentence or quasi-paragraph, that would be it. And I've always been, since going through those exercises to kind of get me to that point, that's why the gym has existed. And so here we are as a community with nearly 40 of us going through this
proving that was a valid concept.
This is a huge concept. And then we have, you had the 5 mountains. I had 5 tenets that held the business together and continue to hold the business together. And they're made for decision making, because I find that there's always going to be breakdown in communications and understanding about like philosophies. And I have, I had a coach that taught me the distinction between covert agreements and explicit agreements. And I always love that language. And so humans very naturally run covert agreements on one another. And so in micro gym communities or any business, people will have like an agreement that they're running in their script and their operating system and their biological default that is different than other people. And so given that is always going to be the nature of relationships, and if what we're doing is relationships, we must have some tools to be able to work through difficult things. And so our tenets are purpose. So that means why the business exists. And from a coach's perspective, why are you coaching here? So coaches got to be pretty clear why they want to coach on the Oak Park team. And then from there, I know you talk about DWEC. I talk about DWEC all the time, like, the growth orientation. So what's the adaptive capacity that you possess as a human being? Like, and are you adapting with time to all the different contingencies that are happening? And a lot of the Kokoro development and the SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind, all that stuff kind of influenced some of that thinking for me. The third one is connection. I was really influenced by the book Tribe by Sebastian Junger and went down a wormhole of self-determination theory and positive psychology and really trying to understand that and just kind of recognizing that humans need to do difficult things together. That's binding. It's binding from a biological level, it's binding from a social level. And if you can agree to what those things are in principle, then you can,
Such as having a rite of passage for young men, which doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist.
What a huge loss that is.
Huge loss. Yeah. It's funny because I know what I'm going to do for my eldest son, but the fourth one is contribution. So what I've seen in a lot of businesses and micro gym communities is that they kind of cannibalize themselves. And so we started with like this conversation from the book Legacy, the idea of like, the All Blacks, and the principle of the athletes there were like, I'm going to leave my jersey better than how I found it. And so the same thing exists in our coaching community at the gym. It's like, if you're going to retire, you must leave the place better than you found it, versus the coach peeling off, taking 30 people, breaking the community up it was like, so we have systems in place to kind of support that. And then the fifth sort of tenet that holds the business together is this concept of value, but that's just as experiential as it is material. And so if you align those first 4 things, that will be valuable to those that are seeking those things. So we have to do an exercise all the time. Like, who are we attracting? And we want to attract people that find resonance in those concepts. Are they training with purpose? Are they growing as a human being outside of the gym? Are they connecting to themselves, to the community, to the broader world? are they making the place better than how they found it? Like, and those are binding evergreen principles. And so, some of the work that I'd done with you made me think about, okay, what are going to be one of my things that kind of bind the thing together? And it's been very useful when there's breakdowns. And another mentor taught me breakdown can lead to breakthrough if you let it.
Look, folks, I'm 61 years old, but I put in physical workouts and a daily routine that would break a lot of guys half my age. And I plan to do that going strong for decades to come because, why not? Well, if you want a lifestyle that defies your age, a great place to start is by adding Qualia Senolytic to your routine. Qualia Senolytic does something that science didn't know was possible until 2015. You see, as we get older, our bodies accumulate something called senescent cells, also named zombie cells, because they're old cells that no longer do their job, but they hang around, wasting energy and nutrition. And the more we age, the more we accumulate these senescent zombie cells. So many aging challenges are related to this. Your workout recovery, reduced energy, joint pain and discomfort, and simply feeling old. But in 2015, Scripps and Mayo Clinics discovered there's natural plant-derived ingredients that can help your bodies eliminate those senescent cells. That's where Qualia Senolytic comes in, combining 9 of those game-changing ingredients into a single supplement. The difference that Qualia Senolytic has made for my own aging process has been incredible. I'm living a lifestyle someone half my age by keeping my senescent cells to a minimum so my energy and vitality can stay through the roof. If you want to feel your prime way longer than you thought possible, you got to try Qualia Senolytic. And you can get up to 50% off right now at qualialife.com/divine15. And the code divine15 at checkout will get you an extra 15% off. Qualia backs their products by a 100-day money-back guarantee, so you've got no risk. Again, check it out. Qualia Senolytics will help you age better. Trust me. Go to qualialife.com, qualialife.com/divine15. That's DIVINE15. And again, use that code divine15 for an extra 15% off to help you stay in your prime for years to come.
That's normal.
A lot of things.
VUCA is a roller coaster.
VUCA is a roller coaster. And this is a pinnacle moment. COVID was a big one, but this is especially big. Because when the gym knocked out Oak Park in Northern California, it was more personal. And then I renamed the gym Oak Park because of it. But
okay. So it used to be CrossFit LA, or
we call it Oak Park, home of CrossFit Los Angeles. So we haven't lost CrossFit Los Angeles, but I just wanted to have legacy because the tree symbolizes
it's more than CrossFit.
Yeah, and CrossFit's a tool that we use, CrossFit, but the tree in Celtic culture, in Indian culture, the oak tree has been a place where communities meet to get strong, to go on their journey.
Right.
And so that symbolism, and I grew up playing in oak trees.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
but
fun.
I mean, it's a
an audience of one over here.
and play for us, Oak Park, come play in the park. Do hard stuff together is our play,
VUCA, right? So volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. There's an antidote, right? So the antidote to volatility is vision. Right? If you got a clear vision, just think about, listening to you, right? You have a clear vision. You're aligned around your purpose, right? And fire sweeps through and destroys your home and 36 people at your gym. And that's volatility. It happened fast. Volatility is when things change fast. And had you lacked clarity of vision, you'd be all over the place right now. Emotionally, physically, it would be a real crisis. But crisis, means opportunity for transformation.
100%.
Opportunity for transformation. Crisis, I think that's something close to what the original meaning of that word is. So uncertainty is dealt with by getting to understanding, and that's the OODA loop. The only way to deal with uncertainty is to OODA loop something and to activate that. Observe, orient, make a decision, again, small one, and then act, and then get right back into the observation mode, which gets you to clarity of understanding, right? Or better understanding to deal with the uncertainty. And the C, which is complexity, I just use the term, but the way through complexity is to seek clarity, right? And to seek clarity, you need to have communications. And so this is how the SEALs got through complexity. They're radical communication, like up, down, cross, like constant, all sorts of different modes of communication, to include hand signals, right? And relying on your intuition, right? And so, like a flock of birds, a Navy SEAL operating at night with his platoon, suddenly, everyone will shift left. And nobody said a word. Because communication is happening at multiple levels. And that's how you get to clarity, to overcome complexity. And then ambiguity, the way to deal with that is adaptability and agility, like quick adaptability. Fell forward fast. Isn't that cool? I call that VUCA Prime.
Love that.
Vision, understanding, clarity, and adaptability.
So great.
That's one of those silly frameworks. But, there's a lot of truth there, and you can apply it practically.
There's so much truth. And as I'm listening to that, there's so much resonance with that.
Yeah.
Part of that's activated, part of that's not. And I'm just going to take that with me. Once again, nothing but net, divine.
Nothing but net. You're a funny thing. So, speaking about vision and purpose, what does that look like for you 10 years from, let's say 5 years, 2030? Of course, AI is in full bloom. What's your vision for humanity, and what's your vision for your role going forward?
I'm really interested in cultivating leaders that are capable of helping humanity through this
inflection point.
Yeah. This nexus point.
Nexus,
I mean, Yuval's
we are at a nexus.
Most recent book is like fantastic as far as like the nexus point. And I really appreciate, some of his thinking on this.
Yuval Harari?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his most recent book is called Nexus. And he's talking about this because never before have we had
the nexus between Homo 1 and Homo Deus.
Well, yeah, yes. And what he's saying is like
Homo sapien and Homo Deus.
We're at the inflection point. To simplify the conversation, he suggests that never before have we had as accurate information as we want. And we're also making the least sense of it at the same time. And there's all kinds of reasons why that's happening. And the inflection point, and I really do feel that. I think this is different. You can look at, there's so many different scripts that you can read that are from the 700s, from BC, that are like the end of days is coming. And I do feel like this moment is a little bit different because of the atom-based versus bit-based reality that we're currently facing, and the bit-based reality kind of manipulating human consciousness. But as far as like what my vision is for the world, for my role in it, I've really gained a lot of purpose from here in supporting, in particular, really extraordinary men. And a lot of the guys that I work with, I mean, they're out there doing amazing, and they're authors and writers and CEOs and surgeons. I mean, just some amazing humans. See, they're just so incredible. And I've gotten really comfortable. Like, I've had a lot of spotlight on me in the first part of my life. And I'm really interested in supporting the development of a small army of people who can make meaningful change. And meaningful change to me looks like a world that's capable of paying attention to the important things, starting with our attentional capacity, which has been downgraded. So, I mean, our attention has been halved in the last 15 years. Halved.
That's crazy.
Our heart rate is our resting heart rate's going up. Our respiratory rate's going up. And it's not because people are working out. They're just agitated.
They're stuck in hyperarousal.
There's a hyper-aroused thing. And I would like to live in a world that's not hyper-aroused, but beautifully present. That's interesting to me.
And not addicted and
not
firmly
addicted,
connected to technology.
and not connected. And I don't want to malign technology, but I do want to come back to this.
No, it's strange, like where this transhumanism push is coming from, because most human beings didn't ask for it.
No,
They're being led along this path that they really don't have any idea what they're getting into. And as soon as you start, this is my view, this anyone listening, but and your children or your children's children, when the call comes to like plant something in your head or to be permanently connected to 5G or to whatever the future version of the
right.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you will lose your autonomy right then and there. There's no going back. And if that happens, the human race will split. Yeah.
I buy that so much. And I'm not interested in that world, because the thing that I just experienced, what we're capable of with our love.
That's right.
Yeah. Like we're going to dismiss.
Getting disconnecting from the disconnecting things will ultimately naturally bring you back to yourself, because you just literally get to now stare at yourself and be like, oh, wow. Like I grew up in upstate New York in 1960s, 60s and 70s. What do you think we were doing for fun?
Yeah, right.
We weren't watching TV.
Totally.
And we weren't scrolling on an iPad.
Totally.
Because those things were not even imaginable back then. And we had a blast. And we got creative. We built forts and we roughhoused and we got injured on the playground and we turned out fine, I think. I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, look,
there are some things that could have gone better. Let's put it that way.
And there's, I always come back. I love the conversation that the Center for Humane Technology is having, and I don't know if you're familiar with their work, but they're a fantastic resource for really nuanced conversations in and around these topics, because all the people who are part of Center for Humane Technology are the people who created the addictive technologies, and they're the ones coming out just going, I created this. This is a monster. We can design technology to be in alignment with a greater purpose, but right now it's not.
Yeah.
And so
until we can have those conversations
in an attuned way.
Right.
It's just because now it's getting
happens.
decorated of like, it's about freedom of speech or freedom of, just like, man, it's not about any of that. And that's the hard part, is that like people want to go into this thing. And again, I have existential concerns that I share with you on that. And I also believe in the work that I'm currently doing, that I'm doing what I can as a literal antidote to that,
right,
to the best of my ability that I possess right now. And, I really do feel like the guys, as we bond, we do basic things. We do breath work. We meet around the fire. We break bread together. Mm. They're required to write. They're required to reflect, and they're required to have swim buddies. Mm-hmm. We know these things. Those are evergreen things. And as these men learn how to be vulnerable, how to be strong, how to come from an authentic, heart-centered place, they're more resilient going into the world, being present in the ways that they can. Mm-hmm. And, and I also want that for my community, my gym community. So I do not want to stop fighting for that existence of connectedness and human relations. And I also get why it's so much easier to doom scroll, because people are a pain in the ass. Humans are so hard. It's so easy to go, let me just look down and flip my phone, because all this stuff,
part of our training
at us
is to get comfortable with discomfort.
And our relationships
are uncomfortable with themselves because they haven't done self-awareness, because their bodies are unhealthy, so they're like agitated, they're hyper-aroused. Totally. And so when you're uncomfortable with yourself, instead of doing the hard thing, which is to go to the gym or to go take a walk or to do the breath work, it's way easier to pick up the phone.
So much easier.
So Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
But I think, there's enough momentum, at least around the people who are thinking and having these conversations, right? And knowledge coming out about the damage or the danger to these misuse of these technologies.
And again,
I'm optimistic that we'll rebalance,
Look,
And if humanity splits,
then we'll be on one side of it.
one group will go to Mars and the other group will stay here. And hopefully we'll be
totally.
Hopefully we'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm. I'd love to come down on a horse and hunt with you. If that's what it winds up being.
If it comes to that, let's just say it's going to be messy, but the net result might be kind of cool.
We'll be all right. I feel like we have to be optimistic, and I want to continue having long form conversations like this, because decontextualized conversations and bit-sized chunks, people can't orient around them, and we know that. And so again, it's this bit reality that I'm speaking of. But
people have the I don't know how many people are going to sit through this whole interview, but then I think like Joe Rogan, does like 3 hours at a time, or my friend Sean Ryan, I remember watching I couldn't watch more than like an hour of it, but he did like this 7-hour interview once.
Wow.
With a former Navy SEAL who became
that's a long
transgender Navy SEAL, and then he transgendered back.
Wow.
Chris Beck became Christine Beck, became Chris Beck again. It took 7 hours to tell that story, apparently.
Wow. Wow. That's a lot. That's so much to unpack. It's just like
so much
to unpack.
I'm not sure I want to listen to all the details there.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Anyway, so you're right. Just having conversations, just sitting down in the coffee shop, when you go out to dinner and everyone, like couples are staring at their phone. We were just, Sandy and I were in the Bahamas. We're like, wow, look at all these people
it's brutal.
Staring at their phones.
It's brutal. I mean, I'd like the world to look up. And that's the world that I want. I want the world to start getting upright again.
I want to live in that world too.
Yeah.
No, but you got to be the change you want to see.
100%.
But it's nice to have a Sherpa, a guide. And that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. Ultimately, I want people to jump out of the nest. The day that I don't need any clients, that's success. And I'm going on a sabbatical.
Yeah, planned obsolescence. I actually like that idea of but that's a great. I love that as a my cohorts. I intentionally break up after a year. Like these guys, they bond together. I'm like,
you don't want a dependency.
No, I said we got to break apart.
Yeah,
we got to break apart, and they don't want to. I'm like, we're gonna break this thing up. And so I think some of them understand that at this point, but it's like, it's a very necessary process for us to break, come really close and just to learn that process of how we go through.
That's such a good point, around growth in general, right? Because even doing very positive things for your growth can turn into a rut if that's, becomes repetitive routine. We saw that with like Ashtanga community. My family, Catherine and I, we did that for years, and we saw people getting injured. The more they stayed doing that as their only thing, the thinner they got, and the more injured they got, and the more narrow-minded they got.
Yeah, it's also,
even though they were doing something really healthy, like this super healthy.
But that myopic focus over time is degradatory.
Same thing with CrossFit.
Anything. You
got to have variety.
Anything.
And you got to know when to move on.
Yeah.
To something that's
going
to crack you wide open in another dimension or another way.
Yeah, and we have tools for that help us understand, like when it's, when it's time. Like a red light or a green light for that growth. Mm-hmm. We have a metric system that we can. It's just a napkin metric system, but it works very, very well to kind of help decision make in that regard. So it's very helpful. But again, it works on a one-on-one thing, and you can kind of look at it person to person and go, yeah, it's time.
Awesome, Kenny. So it's only 2 weeks after the fires. We'll come full circle. You're still looking for a place to stay. Your family's in Sweden. Are you still living in the hotel?
I'm still living in the hotel.
Oh my gosh.
Different hotel.
Are you going to be able to find a place up there? Because the demand must be through the
nuts.
roof.
We're going to find an Airbnb. Well, we have an Airbnb for a month.
Okay.
And again, I'm just trying to buy time.
Right.
Because we know that we're not going to compete with some of the people that have come into the market. I mean, Santa Monica's already an insane market. And so now it's like, okay, now
that
just like
$15,000 place is probably for 15.
And that's just this doesn't, so let that thing cool off a little bit. And because there will be an exodus, and a lot of people will leave. And some Santa Monica.
Once the reality hits them in the head, and once the insurance money starts running out, they're gonna be like, bye.
Because a lot of people are going to be gone, and so let that sort of calibrate itself. And in the meantime, we'll be able to orient towards, are the kids, the new school that they're now going to go to, is it a good integration for them? Are they healthy? Are they happy? Or is it like, boy, this is going to be an uphill lift to keep them in the school? Do we need to think about relocating them to another school in the area?
Have there been any conversations from your school about that?
The school did a pretty darn good job of like relocating. They it is, LAUSD is a monolith. It's like the second biggest school district in the country. So it's like they decision make, and it's just like there's a lot of collateral damage when they decision make. And in a situation like this, they move, and it's just like, it's, bull in a china shop. There's a lot of stuff going down, but they found a school that had physical space for basically the remainder of the students who didn't relocate from our school community to go into. And
just to join that school? Or
join that school. So we're still going to be Marquez Elementary at Norris Dairy.
I see.
So we have a physical location with all the same teachers, which is going to be great for my boys, particularly for my 9-year-old, who is just like, he really, the teacher that he has is so good for him at this moment of time for him, because he's been going through a lot this year, and she is so fantastic. She's like this little angel that just came into Thor's life. So sweet.
Thor, I love that.
Yeah, Thor Kane. And so then, Max's soccer team, really good soccer player, and he was just made, I didn't know that they had captains at 7 years old, but Max is the most resilient. I mean, he's like one of those football players that and he's like Rocky. He just gets knocked down, and you're like, you really shouldn't get up, And he's like, I got it, And like, he was concussed 2 times last year, and just broken bones. He's like head wound Harry. And he's just like, but that kid gets
this is soccer?
It's everything.
Oh, everything.
I mean, he's got multiple bone breaks, concussions, and he's just like, he almost died twice. He's because of HSP. I think you might remember I had to leave one of the things one time because he was, it was not good. And one night, Char and I actually thought we was hospitalized for multiple times for like a week. But he's like Rasputin. You can't kill him. You just can't take him down.
Awesome.
If you know your Russian history.
That which doesn't kill him makes him stronger.
Yeah, and so anyway, he's so resilient. God, that kid is like, and so we'll see, like, did the kids come back from his soccer team that he's a captain of now? Will they have a club team, so we're just gonna have to see if these things present themselves, and and then get information on, hey, what does living in that area look like for a child that's 9 months old, 10 months old, 11 months old? What does that actually mean? Is it okay, or do we not know? Or do we not know, and it's gonna probably be mostly okay, or like, yeah, no, it's not good for an infant's lungs to be in that area. This is stuff that we don't know. And so we're going to have to get that, all these, a
lot of observing and orienting.
And that's what I'm saying. The OODA Loop is so critical. But it's this OODA Loop is like, there's small little decisions. Like,
this is a longer,
hotel now, Airbnb next, then maybe stay at a friend's so we can get a little bit more information.
This is interesting. I want to relate this to another story, but do you have like, here's the 1 week, here's the 30-day, here's the 3-month, here's the 6-month, and just start to fill in some of the dots there?
Yeah, there is. I mean, as far as what's in front of us, my wife typically takes the kids back to Sweden to the summer home for the summer.
Okay.
So Swedes take off the whole summer, and they just, my wife's dad has a summer home that's just unbelievable. It's like a little island off the west coast of Sweden.
Oh, wow.
And there's a bunch of sheep on it, and you have to take a boat to get to it.
Nice.
And it's just like, pretty calming on the nervous system. Yeah, it's really idyllic. It's also rough. There's like Viking ruins on it and stuff.
Oh.
And when the weather changes, it's like, okay, we're going to stay inside because it's summer, but it's raining and cold as balls for the next 4 days. It's just like North Atlantic, that's North Atlantic stuff, And so, but my goal as far as like this orientation is once we get them there's going to be all kinds of qualifications that we're going to understand. The schools are going to go, okay, Marquez is going to open in 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 6 years, whatever it's going to be. We know what the environmental concerns are going to be. We'll know if the boys are enjoying themselves. We'll know if her daughter is safe or not to have her in these regions. We'll know what's happening to the business. Did 25% of our income just fall out and will be gone, for the next year or two? Is it worth trying to repurpose and rebuild around that? Like all those things we're going to orient around.
Right.
We'll have more concrete information that will help us then discern
what's next.
What's next. And so, and again, the OODA Loop thinking just helps me so much. Like we've got these little micro things chunked down. We're in different spots, like my wife's nature versus my nature. Like I'll bias flexibility in a moment like this, and she'll slightly bias certainty in a moment like this. And so we were just having
this pretty normal.
It's very normal.
Dispersion,
It's very normal.
Females
And so
will always go for certainty.
And so she was like, look, I want to, be able to nest with the kids and build a home. And I'm like, I get that. And also we could, from a financial position, put ourselves in an abhorrible position if we move too soon. And then any nesting that we want to do is not available in 18 months because we are like way over our skis in a situation we do not have command of at that point. And so, I'm blessed with some history from observing this in Northern California, knowing what some of the financial patterns are, knowing what some of the migratory patterns are. It's a very different community, my hometown, Santa Rosa, but there's evidence-based stuff that I can just kind of go, okay, this is what I've seen this before. So I'll be able to like orient around a lot of that. Again, it doesn't change my purpose or what I want to do or what my vision is. These are just, things that will be.
But your decision making, once you get to the decide and act, you're always checking it against your purpose.
It has to be.
Because, there's always a fork in the road. And so the question is, which one's in alignment with my purpose?
Yeah.
So
that's where it's got to be.
Yeah, that's heart and
in
belly.
Here.
Right.
That's got to be in here. And, having been through it, that's the gift. That all the stuff that's come before has taught me now.
Right. I mean, everything in life prepares you for this moment. And this moment will always happen because it's the only moment we have. There it is.
It does.
We did a event recently called Leading Under Fire.
Okay.
It was basically VUCA leadership. And we got to wrap up with this. I kind of tell you this little story, but it's a really good drill for anyone to do who's listening. So in the middle of the event, we had something called an inject, like, hey, this message just came in. And the message was that the internet has gone down. And we don't have any further information, right? And so everyone's like, oh, that's no big deal, right? So I said, well, okay, I'll stop. So this is actually pretty important. So I want you to get your teams together and think, okay, what are we going to do? What are the questions you're going to ask, right? How are you going to respond? And they're like, well, how long has it gone down for? We said, I don't know. It could be up in an hour, but if the internet goes down and nobody's communicating, like, what are you going to do? Right? Start thinking, what are you going to do? And so they're like, oh, okay. So they came up with this like plan thinking, oh, this might be like 24 hours, but even 24 hours, you got to think about how am I going to communicate, right? If the cables are out, what if does it include the cell coverage, right? Like, what if the grid goes down? So grid goes down, a lot of things, right? So they started their planning, and then another inject came in. So we just learned that it's going to be at least a week before it's restored. Oh shit. Now we got to get to the store. We got to fill up our tanks with gas. We got to fill up our cars with gas, get some propane. Oh, there's going to be a run. This is going to be like serious, right? And so they start thinking about that. Now the OODA loop shifted a little bit longer term, right? And so they started doing that planning. And then we had another inject that said, okay, this is more serious than we thought. It's going to be down for at least 3 months, right? And now like that changes everything once again.
Everything.
Because like, oh shit, 3 months. I don't think we can even stay in our house. We can't grow, where are we going to get food? Now we're talking about like National Guard and, and riots. And so like,
right.
wow. Okay. So what are you going to do now? It was one of the most incredible exercises for this group to just keep on expanding their mind. Like, oh, that could happen. Now what could happen? That could happen.
It absolutely could happen.
That could really happen. And so for you and everyone who, is dealing with the crises, and whether it's LA or in other areas, if everyone's safe and gets through it, count your blessings and use it as an opportunity to plan for the next major thing that could happen, right? And you've learned a lot of lessons, Kenny, and you need to teach those, which you will, right? So part of your training now is to up the sheepdog and up the crisis planning and get people ready, because, we're going through a lot of transitions. There might be a Eden utopia on the other side of what we're going through, but I don't know. I think we are at a nexus, and when we are at an inflection point, right, there's a lot of things that break down. The old it resists the old institutions, the old energy, right? As it starts to lose oxygen and lose focus, and people start to find meaning elsewhere, they fight back. They try to hold on. And that's what we're seeing with kind of global institutions and, the bifurcation of global order and regionalization, and Russia like stealing territory again. And I mean, the United States might steal territory, Panama Canal and Canada.
My mine, all mine, not yours, mine. It's like, what's happening?
Who knows what's going to happen?
That's mine.
So just get ready, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride, but be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
As you're speaking, I know that both of our favorite movies is Interstellar. And there's a distinction when they talk about Murphy's Law at the beginning of it. And so I know that's one of your favorite movies, but just as you're talking, I'm reminded of that film. It's just a phenomenal film, but but in a cosmic spiritual time sense, I'm reminded of what you just said from a theatrical perspective. But I really appreciate what you just said. And you're right. I mean, this preparation, we are preparing. There's just I think that preparation has to be grounded in some very basic things. And to keep coming back to those basic things as the ground floor, and then being able to work these higher level of operational decisions. Because as you said, what a great exercise. You got to have a strong body and a strong mind. And so you need to train both. That's foundation. Yeah, foundations to be able to handle these things. And just being curious
strong
about
mind, strong community. That's those three things actually.
As you said that, I just thought, like, I was just thinking about the people in my network, the able-bodiedness of our community. I was like, I'd be stoked to be, all right, okay, well, we got some.
Metaphorically, like strong body, strong mind, that exists in the I and the we and the it, right? So the I, the individual has to have a strong body and mind. The we has to have a strong body and mind. And the it, structures have to be strong in body and mind, or in terms of, the culture and the rules and regulations and, how it's going to stand. And if you have strong body, mind, and the I, we, and it, you can get through anything. Anything.
I really feel that right now. I see that in my community. I feel that personally. And there's still so much work to do.
Yeah.
There's so much work to do.
Good thing you like to work hard, Kenny.
Let's go.
Bring it on.
Let's go. Let's go.
I'll tell you what, we're here for you. If we can help out in any way, let us know.
This has been a real treat, man.
Yeah, it's been awesome to have you down here.
It just feels
appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
And again, like, there's a conversation, but I'm still learning.
Still learning. Me too. Just getting warmed up.
Yeah. We got a lot of work to do, man. Let's go. Let's go, everybody that's out there. Let's go.
My new favorite saying is that the only thing I know is that I don't know. I really don't know. Ultimately, I don't know anything.
Man, the older I get, the more I feel like I am.
I just got my PhD, Kenny. Do you know that?
No.
I just spent 4.5 years packing my head full of knowledge. Catherine's getting hers now.
Really? On like conscious leadership?
No, it was global leadership and change.
Leadership, yeah.
And at the end of all that, I'm like, you know what? I really don't know anything. And neither do any of these professors.
Yeah,
God bless them.
Yeah.
They know
Right.
a lot of ideas and concepts.
Right.
But when it comes to the, really what's going on in the world and the spiritual nature of what's really going on, they don't know. And we don't know.
We don't know.
All we can do is just be the best person that we can be and show up moment to moment with total presence. And, ultimately the OODA Loop is to get us to that razor's edge moment of awareness, because you get faster and faster observing, orienting, deciding, and acting.
Yeah, right.
And it ends at the moment of awareness. There is no more OODA looping because it all presents itself.
It's funny, I have some insights to this, through some plant medicine work, which our men's group, does some. And I've kind of interfaced with that in a different sort of dimension. And I experienced some of that feeling during this last crisis. Like that love energetic, the presence to like that sort of universal.
You're so radically present that your mind is not in memory or is not projecting. No. And you just feel the totality of universal love and awareness.
So much.
But it's directed, it's directed through your brain on the problem at hand. That's power. That's called flow, by the way.
It is.
It's another word for flow.
Mahali chicks and Mahai.
Yeah. All right, brother. I should let you go. You got to get back on the road and put your mask back on. Head into the fortress, LA.
Just breathe through that in my mouth. Take it all in. So I got 1 year to live. Let's go. Oh man.
Well, thank you so much.
I appreciate you bringing me on today, brother.
Yeah.
And
appreciate you coming down.
I love the Seal Fit community. It's meant a lot to me through the years. And again, some of this work has really prepared me for these moments. So I'm very grateful.
Ooh-yah.
Yeah.
Ooh-yah, brother.
Thank you for joining us on the Mark Divine Show. We hope this podcast has enriched your life as well as encouraged you to think from new perspectives and make actionable change. You can find all the resources from this episode on the website markdivine.com, along with the video version on the YouTube channel. Just search Mark Divine. You can also connect with Mark Divine directly on Twitter X, Instagram, Facebook, or you can also reach out if you want to share ideas, bring up topics you'd like to hear Mark discuss, or any guest suggestions via his LinkedIn page, Mark Divine. A big thanks to our amazing team at Jet Studios, bringing this podcast to you every week. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to the Divine Inspiration newsletter. You can go to markdivine.com and subscribe there. Check out Mark's new performance-focused supplements at sealfitsupplements.com. If you are a new or regular listener to the Mark Divine Show, we would be so grateful if you could rate and review the show. It helps with visibility, and it also gets us out there to more people that are wanting to be positive change agents in this world. Remember, you have the power to create change you want to see. So let's all strive for a better world as trailblazers and warriors of positive change. Stay inspired, stay curious, and be uncommon. Thank you.